Imagine trying to sleep through a sweltering summer night with only a damp sheet for relief, or planning your entire day around the movements of the sun. For generations, this wasn't imagination. It was simply life. Before the hum of central air became a household staple, people relied on a mix of clever design, community habits, and sheer ingenuity to survive the heat. Here are 10 ways people stayed cool in the heat before air conditioning. Long before the thermostat, the first line of defense against the summer heat was the home itself. Architects and builders of the 19th and early 20th centuries employed brilliant passive cooling strategies that modern design often overlooks. Homes were frequently built with incredibly high ceilings, working on the simple principle that hot air rises, lifting the most oppressive heat far above the living space. Large, tall windows were a standard feature, but their placement was key. By positioning windows on opposite sides of a room, homeowners could create a natural cross breeze that would pull air through the house. Many homes also featured transom windows, small hinged windows above doors that could be opened to allow hot air to escape rooms even when the doors were closed for privacy, promoting constant air circulation throughout the house. This thoughtful, climate-aware construction meant that the house itself was an active participant in keeping its residents cool. Today, a front porch is often a decorative element, but before air conditioning, it was the most important room in the house during the summer. These large, covered spaces provided a crucial shaded area where families could escape the stuffy, heat-soaked interiors. The porch was a center of social life. On hot evenings, it was where you'd find neighbors gathered in rocking chairs, sharing stories, sipping on iced tea, and catching up on the day's gossip while enjoying the evening breeze. It was a place for children to play, for adults to read the newspaper, and for the whole family to eat meals. The decline of the front porch as a social hub is directly linked to the rise of air conditioning and television, which pulled American families from their front steps back into the climate-controlled privacy of their living rooms. In the quest for a cool night's rest, some families took the concept of the porch one step further with a sleeping porch. These were typically screened-in porches or balconies, often on the second floor, designed specifically for sleeping during the hot, humid months. In an era without air conditioning, upstairs bedrooms could become unbearable ovens, trapping the day's heat. Families would drag mattresses and pillows out to the sleeping porch, where they could be cooled by the night air without being eaten alive by mosquitoes. It was a common practice from the late 1800s through the 1940s, seen as not only comfortable but also healthy, as it promoted fresh air circulation, which was believed to ward off illnesses like tuberculosis. Falling asleep to the sound of crickets and a gentle breeze was a quintessential part of summer for many. For those with electricity, the electric fan was a revolutionary piece of technology. First introduced in the 1880s, fans became more common in homes by the 1920s and 30s. But simply moving hot air around wasn't always enough. People developed clever hacks to enhance their cooling power. A popular method was to place a large block of ice or a bowl of ice water directly in front of a fan. As the fan blew across the ice, it would circulate chilled, misty air throughout the room, creating a primitive form of air conditioning. Another technique involved hanging damp sheets in front of open windows or fans, using the principle of evaporative cooling to lower the room's temperature as the water evaporated from the fabric. Before the electric refrigerator became a household staple in the 1940s and 50s, families relied on an icebox to keep their food from spoiling. This meant a regular visit from the iceman, who would deliver large blocks of ice with a set of iron tongs, often hoisted over his shoulder on a leather pad. These blocks were essential for the kitchen, but they also served as a source of relief from the heat. On brutally hot days, children would flock to the iceman's truck, hoping for small ice chips to suck on. At home, the ice wasn't just for the icebox, it was a key component in making iced drinks. And as mentioned, it was often used with fans to create a makeshift cooling system. This entire industry, a daily part of American life for decades, vanished almost completely with the advent of modern refrigeration and air conditioning. In the arid climates of the American Southwest, a different kind of cooling technology emerged in the 1930s, the evaporative cooler, more commonly known as the swamp cooler. This device was a game changer for regions where the air was hot but dry. A swamp cooler works by pulling hot, dry air through water-saturated pads. As the water evaporates, it dramatically cools the air, which is then blown into the house. While ineffective in humid climates, in places like Arizona and New Mexico, they were lifesavers, making desert living far more bearable. They represented an early, affordable form of mechanical cooling that predated the widespread adoption of refrigerant-based air conditioning in the region. Summer fashion before air conditioning was dictated by practicality. The goal was to wear clothing that was as light and breathable as possible. Natural fabrics like cotton, linen, and seersucker were staples because they allowed air to circulate and didn't trap heat and moisture. Men often wore light-colored suits made of these materials, and at home, it wasn't uncommon for them to go shirtless or wear a thin cotton undershirt. Women opted for loose-fitting, sleeveless cotton dresses. Children, in particular, spent their summer in as little clothing as possible, often just shorts or a sunsuit, and almost always barefoot. The idea of wearing heavy fabrics like polyester or tight-fitting clothes in the summer would have been unthinkable. Life moved at a different pace, one dictated by the sun. People instinctively adjusted their daily schedules to avoid strenuous activity during the hottest part of the day, typically between noon and 4 p.m. This was the time for a siesta, or a quiet rest in the shadiest part of the house. Farmers and outdoor laborers would start their work at dawn, take a long break in the afternoon, and finish their tasks in the cooler evening hours. Housework that generated heat, such as baking, canning, or ironing, was done in the cool of the early morning. This deliberate pacing was a fundamental survival strategy, a way of life that conserved energy and avoided the dangers of heat exhaustion. While homes remained hot, the public sphere began to offer pockets of relief. In the 1920s and 30s, movie theaters and large department stores became some of the first public spaces to install refrigerated air. They heavily advertised this new luxury, and it worked. On a scorching summer afternoon, one of the most popular pastimes was going to the movies, not just for the film, but for the blissful escape of sitting in a cold, dark theater for a few hours. Malls and department stores also became popular destinations for people looking to do some window shopping while enjoying the free air conditioning, a practice that drew in customers and transformed summer commerce. For children, summer heat was an invitation for communal water play. It was a common and accepted sight to see entire neighborhoods of kids running through lawn sprinklers or, in the city, gathering around an open fire hydrant. The powerful gush of water from a hydrant was the ultimate relief, turning a hot city street into a temporary water park. Swimming in the local creek, river, or lake was another cherished summer tradition. These simple pleasures didn't require technology. They relied on shared resources and a sense of community. Popsicles melted faster than they could be eaten, and lemonade stands popped up on every corner, all part of a collective effort to find joy and relief in the heat. So, if you didn't have air conditioning, how would you stay cool during the summer heat? Drop a comment below to tell us your favorite method.